Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Robyn, and Porshèa, embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Currently, we're reading Amari and the Despicable Wonders by B.B. Alston. Today, we're discussing chapters 22 through 24.
But first, previously on Wizard Team, Lucas and Hannah need help from Amari and the Bureau, but Quentin doesn't want to give it. He also is not practicing what he preaches, something that really affects Amari. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters emotionally, but it doesn't matter plot-wise because Magnus is an enabler and allows Amari and her friends to go and see if they can recover the mural and help Lucas and Hannah. Peekaboo is ready to be a distraction and died ready, in fact, to help them on their quest.
Peekaboo ain't never scared.
No, never. And then they sneak in to find the mural, only to find Harlow.
I just want to say, so I was editing because I was trying to serve Tracy Dion some papers last week. She laughed in my face and said, "Return to sender." But the way that ends, and you're like, "Oh, it's just Harlow," and like they also find the mural. Spoiler alert. We're about to get into it like 2 seconds later. I don't think they say it in that chapter. Like we just see Harlow. And so yeah, like the way that PB Alston did that, I was like, bitch. All of this, and we're gonna talk again about their plans and what goes on and whatever, but like I was also just thinking about I don't know if it's the first few times I read the book and it just never really like sat with me, or because of the way that we read the book for Wizard Team it did. Like what happens to Hannah and like Amari being the one to see that is so traumatizing on top of like a bunch of other traumatizing shit. Mm-hmm. And then to immediately like walk into I was like, you must be stopped. Plus all of the like emotions Magnus brings, like that little 3 sections, 3 chapters was like a roller coaster of emotions, but also I'm just real sick of these authors doing this to me. And I would like them to stop. Or at least have a little bit like more.
Well,
like give me some more breaks. Like we talk about like B.B. Alston's pacing is amazing. And it, like his writing is very cinematic. And like somehow like almost every chapter ends on a cliffhanger that you're like, I gotta turn the page. Like and like the pacing of it is just like boom, boom, boom.
And not like, to detract from B.B. Alston, because like this is your work, sir. Great job. But also the editors, whoever's like editing this, good job.
I just need y'all to give me a minute. I'm sure, okay, so I'm thinking middle graders are generally healthier. Like their hearts can take more than my middle-aged ass. But also, and we've talked about this, I told B.B. Alston this, I have anxiety. Cue the Dochi music, okay? Like, I need a break. I mean, I don't really want a chapter where we talk about how they went from eating hot dogs, corn dogs, pizza to then going back for dinner and getting mac and cheese and more, or like fried chicken or whatever the fuck they did. But like that is also a different kind of anxiety inducing, but it's a little bit more acceptable than what those 3 chapters gave.
See, they're like, you can take. I think it's up to you to take the breaks, unfortunately.
Yep. And like, I'm like,
every single chapter ends in a cliffhanger.
I know.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah, their jobs.
the break that you're looking for is the break that you get every week, the days in between the next time you pick up the book and read it. That's your break.
For Wizard Team.
Because that Hannah
Yeah, no,
and
that was
Magnus
wild.
back
Hannah being turned
that
into stone and then disappearing is crazy.
and was
Crazy
like,
work.
I was like, BB Alston he was watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Season 4. Oh, I guess
God
season 2.
dang.
All of it.
Ooh. Mm. What a time we had that was that in Slack? That was a time.
Yeah,
Ugh.
that was a stressful time. I
still like get people who did not get into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after like the first like half of the first season, and I was like, you guys, please. It's probably the best thing Marvel ever did. And worst. Okay. So, moving on. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. contains multitudes. Chapter 22. Amari. Like Harlow sees Amari and immediately starts barking orders. But then also like yelling because she like recognizes that it's Amari. Amari finds herself unable to disobey Harlow, and it takes her a minute. But then Harlow realizes this because she did not realize that she was barking orders at Amari during the gala. She didn't ever figure out that Amari was in disguise. She never figured out that that was Amari. So Harlow demands that Amari free her. But before she can finish commanding Amari to give her Magnus's transporter, she starts to beat the mural with her shoe and like scratch at it. Which like, you know, being held captive by magicians in the Arctic, I'm sure is stressful. Especially because magicians are immune to her supernatural ability, so she's not dealing with it well. But also I had to read it a few times because Harlow is like a fawn, right? So she takes off her heels and she's like beating the thing with her heels. But I thought she was like kicking at it with her like hooves.
Nah, I think she just has hoof
She had pumps on.
shaped heels.
She had pumps on. Yeah. And I just thought it was pretty funny because like, who throws a shoe?
I mean, that's something that like older Black women like do. Like they like throw shoes at like, you know what I mean, like and like chanclas. Like I know there's people who do that for reals. But for me, what it did was that it was like showcasing how ridiculous Harlow is as a villain because she's not sophisticated at all. Like if we return to her conversation that she had with Amari, thinking that she was Mrs. Chamberlain, like the discussion was so basic. Like she's like she honestly is only where she is because her power is so strong. Like if she's not a like well planned and intentional villain. She's just like an opportunist who uses her abilities to build out those opportunities, and she just goes from there. So
she
like,
also kind of reminds me of, you know how they always say like people who are like very attractive never had to develop like a personality. She kind of reminds me of that. Like her supernatural ability is so strong that she never had to develop actual powers of persuasion or like actual, I don't know, like emotional regularity, because she just gets what she wants. You know what I mean? Like a child having a tantrum, but you give them what they want and they're happy. But if they don't get what they want, they like discombobulate. Yeah, that's what it was kind of giving me too. It's like she's been stuck here screaming commands at these magicians who are just like ignoring it because they're immune. And she finally gets free and she's just like, I have a temper, like it's a temper tantrum. And Amari, the child, is sitting there like, what? So as she's beating the mural up, with her shoe. Jaden, Peekaboo, and Lucas come in, and they distract her even more. And she again starts screaming commands. Amari and Jaden start to defend Harlow against Lucas. And as they're like, she tells Jaden to like tackle Lucas or whatever. She takes that opportunity and she just runs. And I think it's just really interesting, like Harlow's reaction to being around magicians. Once she's far enough away, though, her control lessens. Lucas, Jaden decides that he's gonna try to chase after Harlow, and Lucas stops him, and it's like, that's not what we came here for. Lucas asks where Hannah is. Mari has to explain it. And so then Lucas decides that Jaden, Amari, and Peekaboo need to take the mural and return to the Bureau, and he will go after Hannah. Because Hannah turns into like stone and then disappears, and so they assume that she's now been like marked a traitor and is like sent back to Dylan and is at his mercy. When they get back to the Bureau, Elsie has grabbed some translation goggles because they're like, oh shit, Lucas and Hannah aren't with us because things went to crap, and they're the only ones who could read these like glyphs in this old magician language. But Elsie's like, I'm very smart. And left to my own devices, I could come up with semi-plans. The maker of the Despicable Wonders is not the Knight Brothers. It's someone called the Grand Artificer, and his apprentices made this mural to warn people about what the wonders are that he created, and that they imprisoned him and hid the wonders in multiple places. So we're going to go through the Despicable Wonders real quick, because they list them all, and there are 5 of them, I believe. One is the Crown of Excess, which is, we've been calling it like Vladimir's crown, the Crown of Vladimir. They figure out like, oh, he didn't make that. He just stole someone's work. He was plagiarizing. And that allows, the crown is capable of storing limitless power. So you, as a single human being, there's only so much magic that you can hold. And so the crown allows for you to like hold even more, which is like when Dylan took Moreau's magic, when Dylan took Amari's magic, it's like in the crown. It's being held in the crown. There's the time gem, which we can like X out because that is what Dylan destroyed and then destroyed or disappeared. Merlin disappeared him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that controls the bear. Whoever holds the time gem can control time. Stop it, start it, fast forward it, I guess. They can control it. There is a spark of life, which breathes life into nothingness, and they figure out that that's how the Unwanteds were created. And then they're like, how many fucking wonders did the Knight Brothers hold? Oh no. And then there is something scratched out by Harlow. We don't know the name of it, but it's a blade. And this blade will obliterate anything it touches, or cut through the magic, obliterate the magic of anything it touches. And then there is the lens of increase, and that amplifies the effect of any spell. And so Amari is like, we got to get the blade. We got to destroy the crown. Elsie's like, that's cute. But actually, that can be plan B, because plan A is we need to stop Dylan from getting the lens of increase. And then she goes into a very mathematical explanation, which I'm sure makes complete sense.
Let me just say,
and Kashana, I'm not touching it.
It's a very grade level appropriate, like mathematical discussion. And I just want to give props to BB Alston for, I'm saying props to BB Alston, but also to any other authors. And I see this happen. This is something that I've noticed when I read middle grade. Sometimes that you can tell that the author has paid attention to what is appropriate to what someone is like learning at this age level in a unit in school. So like I remember I read like a Circle of Magic book, and they were talking about the different alloy in like iron at a forge. And I'm like, oh, I remember learning about, or like a pulley system, like you learn about like in like 6th grade science. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense to include that in a middle grade book, because in 6th grade they're learning this one thing in science class. So it's kind of like reinforcing a lesson that they're learning for school and doing it in a fun fictional way where it's like I just love that. I love that fiction can be a place to reinforce real life lessons, and especially at a young age. And I just remember being young and reading stuff that did that, and I'm like, now I'm gonna remember why like -4 is canceled out by +4, because I just had this like saw this discussion in this book. So I really just like, I love whenever that happens, especially, but I notice it the most in middle grade books, and I like have to give it a cute little star when I see it.
I, on the other hand, do not remember being young. I'm so old that my youth is far, far away from me, and I don't remember it. I'm sure I didn't understand it then because math has never been my ministry. But it makes sense. And again, I agree with what you're saying, because even Jaden is like, oh, that was an amazing explanation, because they are all in the same grade and they're all getting this mathematical explanation reinforced. Good job. Then they're like, okay, so those are our plans. Now what? And Jaden's like, well, there is this button that says activate. We could press that. And Laura just presses the button. I mean, there's a little bit of discussion, but not enough discussion for pressing a button made by the people who have just explained what all the Despicable Wonders are, and that they not only captured them and hid them around the world because they couldn't destroy them, but they also like captured the creator of all of these Despicable Wonders and imprisoned him. So, very safe people to believe. They press a button and then they find a lockless key. And that key will take you where you want to go or locate what you're trying to find, which are, for them, the wonders. And Amari's like, well, I don't have any magic, so I can't get the key. And Elsie is like, you do not get a good reader sticker. Because it doesn't say anything about how much magic you have. It says you need to be born a magician, which you are. So you can get the key even though you no longer have access to your magic. So Amari gets the key, asks the key to take her to the Lens of Increase, and then there's an illusion of the Night Brothers being like, nana nana boo boo, we already claimed this inheritance, try again. Which is like crazy, because it feels like the key is supposed to take you. I didn't ask the key who claimed the inheritance. I asked the key to take me to it. So maybe the Night Brothers put something on it. Will we figure that out next time on Dragon Ball Z? I'm not sure, but that's a question I have, because as we see, like, right away, the key does take them places and like where they need to go without knowing exactly where it is. It answers the questions, I guess. Is that the right way of saying it? It gives you what you need, and it takes you where you need to go. You have to like ask it to take you. So maybe the question is wrong when she asked it to take them to the Lens of Increase, or maybe she should have asked it to take them to the Lens of Increase as opposed to give them the Lens of Increase. I'm not sure. This is the question that I have about this key. Any thoughts, anyone? Bueller?
I actually wanted to finish up the summary before you got into your questions.
Oh, that's the end of the summary. That's like the first question. So, the inheritance has been claimed, and then Bertha knocks on the door. Bertha knocks. They've been caught, kind of. End of chapter. Now, what is up with this key?
I was confused about the key the first time I read it. I was confused about the key this time. I guess because I didn't really remember that, like, when I read it, I saw that that image popped up whenever they tried to activate the key. I was like, oh, so the key's not functional, because how can you put a spell on something that says that, like, we've claimed it? I thought they were saying they claimed the key. So I'm like, oh, is this like a replica key? Like, is this like a false key? And they had the real key. And so Amari is just holding something that doesn't function. And then we are going to see her using the key. So I'm like, okay, so how are they able to put an image on something that appears when she's looking for the lens, but like only if she's using the key to look for the lens? And like it, I just so fiction
Plot.
has been my answer to my confusion.
Bayana, do you have any guesses? Explain this
About
key.
about the key.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's plot. I think that it's hidden in a way that only magicians can access. So I feel like, yeah.
But it should take you there.
What
Okay,
take you
my
where? What
other-
do you mean? Oh, to the specific.
To the lens of increase. She says, hold on.
Well, it did. Well, the thing is the my Night Brothers put a like thing on it. Because she says, "Take me to the lens of increase," or "Take me." I think that's what. Yeah, I think she says, "Take me to the lens of increase." Lens of increase, and then the illusion of the Night Brothers as kids show up and are like, "Haha, I got there first." You know what I mean? So I think it's probably an additional curse or like block from the Night Brothers that because they got the wonders, they can use those wonders to block the key in whatever way.
Maybe. I'm not happy with that, but it's a better thing than what I've come up with, which is nothing. I've come up with nothing. Other comment. This is like the comments. This is pretty like duh because we've said it like 15 times, but I think it bears repeating. It's like these children. Okay, so plan A is stop Dylan from getting the lens of increase. Plan B is use the blade to destroy the crown. Neither one of these things are complete plans. Those are goals that you then need a plan to meet the goal. So their streak of incomplete and unthought out plans continue. But like, you need a plan to stop Dylan from getting. The plan can't be stop Dylan from. Like, if the plan is stop, like that's not a plan. And then, again, children, Peekaboo, the ghost who is already dead, says, let's just use the key. What's the worst that can happen? An explosion? Says the member of the squad who's already dead. And then they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's just use it. Like, one, we have seen the time gem, like we have seen like whole, like he has like ended a whole bunch of stuff. Like you are dealing with anti-magic. We've seen what it can do.
Yeah.
And also Peekaboo is already dead. Why did he get a vote?
I don't know why they're listening to Peekaboo. I do think that it's one of those things where like they already know they're gonna do it. It's one of those like fulfillment things. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, maybe we should at least acknowledge that there's some danger here before we do it anyway. Like that's kind of what it felt like
before we do the inevitable.
And so Peekaboo saying whatever Peekaboo's gonna say is like, sure, whatever. Like it should give them pause, but they were gonna do it anyway, so whatever.
I guess. I just these children. And then I kind of talked about this again, but another like comment or thought that this chapter brought up is like Harlow's fear of magicians is I don't know, it's just something that like I feel like it should constantly be remarked on. I don't know how much Harlow, I can't 100% remember if Harlow is going to be, I don't think she's going to be like a main issue moving forward. I think the Harlow issue is solved or is over by the end of this book, I believe. I'm trying to, I can't remember exactly, but I just feel like if not her specifically, like that fear of magicians, kind of like is a thing that I think plays into also like what we know about Quentin and like the rest of the Bureau and things like that. And I think a lot of it is could be pointed to the fact that like magicians are immune to her ability and her ability to control. And so they're like kind of like beyond control, or outside of control, and outside of this like bureau's control, right? And so I think in this term, so another thought that I had about this whole thing is like getting the mural, regardless of how reckless or whatever that is, but then like bringing it back to the bureau and like using the translation goggles. Like, this is amazing intel gathering by Amari and crew. But Quentin is so like, go to your room, leave it to the adults and stuff like that, that like they're not working together, and they can't even really share it because they're hiding what they're doing from the bureau still. They're not able to like really like do all of this stuff out in the open. And then what Magnus was saying is like, gather intel, help us out, help us make good decisions, right?
I think there's also something to be said about Magnus. As much as I've stanned him in the last 2 episodes, like he's not then going to Quentin and being like, this is what I've done. Like he's doing it on the low, and then Amari and them get in trouble or get yelled at, which, you know, we'll get into the next chapter. But he is not going to Quentin and being like, yo, you need to,
I'm the director,
your sister or assistant director, but still, yeah, like you need to,
but still, like I'm your
Mari's
boss.
got some like valuable input and like perspective.
But I also feel like the main failure, and I understand it as an eldest, is that Quentin is not explaining the reasoning behind why they've decided what they've decided. So Amari is like, nothing's happening. They just like, they heard my plan and strategy and they just dismissed it. How F them, like I'm gonna do it rogue. And I have like the backing of like Magnus, so I'm in it. And we see later there was reasoning behind it. So I feel like if Amari had known that information, if Elsie had known that information, especially, Elsie would have been like, I don't know, guys, we need to reconsider whatever. And I think we'd have been having a different conversation if like he'd been forthcoming about not just the decision that was made, but why the decision was made.
This is so funny because so Champions League is happening right now. It's a big soccer tournament in Europe. And one of the best players in the world, Thierry Henry, there was a call in one of the like penalty shootouts, and was it a penalty shootout? Yeah. That like reversed a penalty, right? So this is like it's like basically it like takes away a goal or a score in like this is like a win or go home tournament, but this tournament is like worth millions and like, or billions possibly, and like it's a big tournament, like best club in Europe tournament. And Thierry Henry was saying the problem with like the way that these calls and stuff are made is that they just like make the decision, and like, you know, that they're like everyone says VAR, which is like the replay thing, and they think about it as like some amorphous being, like whatever, but there are people who are watching these things and making these decisions, but they don't explain anything. And the lack of explanation allows for all of this like conspiracy theory and all of this stuff, and like all of this like drama to happen on or in the stadium, because like they don't explain it to the fans, they don't explain it to the players, they just say like, oh, this was the decision, let's move on. And so it's really funny that you bring that up, because my mind immediately went to Thierry Henry and like what he was talking about literally like on Wednesday or whatever. And it's true, like he's like, if you explain it to me, or if you like tell me what's going on, I may not agree, but then I know, or like I know that an explanation is coming, so I'll calm down, or I'll wait before I, you know, like I can like tamp down my immediate reaction because I know an explanation is coming. I know that like whether or not I agree with the explanation or whatever, I'm going to understand why the call was made. And I think that is like this like really interesting thing that like it matches with Amari, because like Magnus gives her the transporter, yes, but like there's nothing that says like she needs to take the transporter and go immediately, besides the fact that she doesn't trust Quentin or the Bureau. And
I think there was a time that they were supposed to meet.
Yeah. They were supposed to meet, right? Yeah. But they like when she gets it, and they just like we're gonna go, right? They wait. They still wait until like midnight, right? So in between that, there could have been like a this is an explanation, type of thing, which could have changed. Maybe it would have been more useful. I don't know if useful is the right word, but to like figure out what the mural did and leave it there, right? But you like kind of know the next steps, or you take pictures of it or whatever, or you put a decoy in its place or something. You know what I mean? Like they could have like that explanation would have gone a long way. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the problem too. Yeah, it's just like Quentin is not.
It's Quentin.
Yeah, he's not trying to hear it.
You could say it. Come on over to my side.
So
so
no, I mean,
disappointed.
I've already been. I'm pretty sure I binged him last week.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Here on Wizard Team, it's no surprise that we love books. We also love supporting the independent bookstores.
With our bookshop affiliate link, you can not only get all the books on your TBR, but you can support indie bookstores and B&C at the same time.
And if you're not sure what you want, that ain't no problem. Check out our The Plot Thickens list full of recommendations from none other than Porshèa herself.
Head to www.bookshop.org/shop/BlackNerdsCreate to treat your shelves.
Treat your shelves.
Oh, that's nice. That's clever.
Oh my goodness.
That's clever.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Chapter 23. So Amari and Elsie. So after Bertha knocks on the door, Amari and Elsie are trying to hide the mural and key before letting her in. She can tell something's up. I think it was confirmed maybe last episode or the one before that. She can literally, her supernatural ability is to literally like smell trouble. So she can tell something's up, but she's there because Quentin has summoned them. He's angry because he knows they went to steal the mural. Dylan has declared the theft an act of war and is now using Amari's stolen magic to create a hurricane-level storm over Atlanta. Amari tries to take the full blame for what happened, but her friends don't let her. And it's possible that they'll all be kicked out of the bureau. They're sent back to their rooms to kind of await their fates. But Bertha falls for Lara's crying act and then lets them all go back into Amari and Elsie's room for final goodbyes in quotes. But it's not goodbye. At Lara's prompting, the group decides to go after the Wonders themselves, starting with looking for clues at the Van Helsing estate. They use the lockless key to leave just in time as Bertha, Director Van Helsing, and Quentin with a bunch of agents burst into the room to come chase after them. I guess a question as I just said that. I wonder why the agents knew. Like
they told them to wait out in their room because they were going to dole out punishment.
No, I know that, but then it was like Bertha let them go in. Even if Bertha knew that something was up, I think my only question. So maybe they were already on their way, I guess? Is that what
they
you're
were?
saying?
I think they were already on their ways. Yeah. I think they were already on their way because they said they're like, hey, like y'all got like a couple of minutes to go to y'all's rooms, but you're going to be dealt with by the department. So.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like immediately as they were on their way and Bertha was like, oh, they're saying goodbye. in the room with the closed door.
They were like, absolutely
They're
not.
like, absolutely not. So they burst in because it was like this
like,
squad?
wait, there's some scheming little kids.
Yeah.
So my first little like comment is that Quentin is like mad, like so angry at Amari and them, but like he has not yet apologized for his earlier offense. Like they didn't, like Amari, the last time they saw each other, Amari ran away like in tears from him. And so he's all mad because she's gone and done this thing. And like, I get it. But at the same time, there's this like there's already this unresolved tension between them.
I kind of I do think that to apologize, you have to
believe that you're,
wrong,
absolutely. But I think that like, but I also think that it's like, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Like the way that she left, I don't know that I would believe that she was gonna really listen to whatever I had to say. I don't know. I feel like there was like a level of like surprise from her in a way that I was just like, dude. But
it definitely gave like, you're not my dad kind of like stopping away of like, I'm a, who are you to tell me what I can and can't?
Well, it wasn't even that. It was more like, because it was more over the like, you're one of the good ones type thing. You and Maria are different. And she's just like, do you know how you're somebody I looked up to, and like now all of a sudden you're being everything that you told me not to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's this point, and now he's trying to. Yeah,
I just hear you on like him having that interaction with her, and like you would think that if she meant that much to him, he would have taken her reaction and sat with it a minute, and like that be the thing that'd be on top of his brain before he, like, the next time he talks to her, he's like, oh, I need to kind of like go on and like own up to this,
or like smooth things out, even if it's still like an agree to disagree, which I don't think is ideal, but like even if it was that, it's like, this is still your sibling, and like. And I think the other thing that it could have been like, oh, I was planning to come talk to you, and then I found out you were gone. You know what I mean? Which isn't how they found out about the mural, but still.
I think the problem with that though is that like there is currently like a hurricane thing going on. So like
but why didn't he discover she was gone? Because he like
sooner is what I mean.
Okay, I get what you're
saying. Or even in that time that you were talking about earlier, whenever he could have like given her an explanation in between them going off on the, like, why hasn't he tried to patch things up in the meantime?
Yeah, he did have time. Yeah, like they should have gotten back with him just sitting in the room. Like he should have been there while they discovered all the mural stuff, because he was sitting in the room waiting for her to get back. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that.
I think also, so he says this thing because Maria is like, calm down, whatever. And he's like, they need to know what happens when you take it upon yourself to make decisions for the entire supernatural world, which is like, that's what you're doing, and you're not doing a great job of like actually.
But Maria says that too. Maria's like, don't you not remember when we were doing exactly
the same thing? And he's like, yeah, but we learned our lessons, so they need to learn too, which is like, okay, fine. But however, you got some lessons to learn now that you're not being.
And also,
but he's
not saying this to Maria, but like what I hear is not, we learned our lesson, but like, yeah, but we're not magicians, because he hasn't really like, you know what I mean?
Well, but Maria is.
No, I know, but I'm saying that's why he's not saying it that way. But I get the feeling of like, not only like they learned their lesson and like, or we learned our lessons and need to too, but like we weren't going off working with magicians. It's like I think a large part of that.
I don't hear that. I can see how you're there. I don't hear that. What I hear is, we know better. Like, how do they know better? Through experience. He's not talking about that. We know better. We're better. We're the better agents. We know better. And it's funny because he's saying that, for me, it comes from quite pompously. Like, he's like, because he still thinks he's one of the best people to make decisions for the whole supernatural world, because he just did it not out to a day ago, whenever he answered to the reporters what their next steps were going to be, before, like no consultation with either director, just like bloop, here we go. So it's like,
and I'm wondering about this too. Like we can already see, like, this is I hate it. This is another small criticism of Magnus. But in the way in which Magnus deals with Amari, we can see how he indulges his like favorites. He definitely has favorites. He told Amari, like, I think you're even more special than Quentin was when he was a junior agent, right? Like, but he also, like, you know, Mama Peters knows Magnus. Like, he had a relationship with Quentin, and he has a relationship with Quentin, and Quentin's very like a favorite student. And so I think I would like to believe that if it wasn't Quentin, if it wasn't Vanquish, at some, like, if it was Tristan or whatever, like, no matter how special or how many accolades that you have, at a certain point, a director, assistant director would be like, all right, I know the press loves you and we're putting you up front for certain things, but rein it back because you're not actually in charge here.
Maker. Yeah.
You're not, yeah, exactly. Like, you have, like, you're a stakeholder. We're going to listen to what you think, but you cannot do this. And I feel like because of how Magnuses want to, like, indulge and give a lot of leeway to his favorites, Quentin, in the same way that Amari's taking liberties, is taking a lot of liberties that I, again, would like to believe, we don't know because this is all we see, but I would like to believe that if someone else tried to do, would have been scaled back. And I would like, beyond Maria, because I feel like Maria's also very passive, but I would like also like someone to be like, you going after Amari, but like, you right now are doing a bunch of shit that's outside of what you're supposed to be allowed to do. So yeah.
I think there's also still, like, plot wise, I do think there's something to be said about Amari. I think we maybe talked about this before. Like, she definitely works better outside of the system of the Bureau. So this also, like, on a plot side reinforces that, that, like, her work has to be done without Bureau resources. The other thing, so I only have like two other small things, but one, how has Dylan not been kicked off of EARG? Like, he's claiming this act of war on social media. Like,
he has tech magic. I feel like they could probably like try
but
to,
he
like,
has tech magic, but it's like he's got his
posts and stuff. But
yeah, it's like his name or the whatever. Maybe, I don't know. It's just funny to me.
I feel like there's just like he's
and
like
feels like a parallel
getting into the line of code or something in a way
maybe.
that, like, they're like, we've blocked this account 15 times and it just
we can't do it.
Up.
True.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. Because I was like, they got Amari off of there hecka quick last summer. Or I guess
So
that was only a
quickly.
few weeks ago. It was only maybe a month ago.
She was able to check her messages though. So
no. But even after, but when she got kicked off out of the Bureau,
right.
Great Game, and she couldn't access, the other net.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then also I'm like, has Bertha gone soft, or is she just like susceptible to white girl tears? Because
both. Both.
Because
I was like,
remember
Amari was like, she is so much nicer to me now that I'm a junior agent than
true
before. And we had like noticed that shift.
Yeah. But I'm also like, in this particular case, like, they're in a lot of trouble, and you're just like, oh, don't cry.
Yeah.
I don't know, but also I don't know if that's like, because Bertha's like her domain is the dorms. So how frequently is she actually interacting with like Director Van Helsing's? You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's a level of like respect, which is actually just fear of like someone from a greater position than her. So she's like, oh, I can't have the boss's effing daughter crying. Like, what can I? Can we not? Like,
yeah, maybe.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny with Laura, because sometimes you're like, is this a white woman tear, or not, you know, like a poor little white girl, rich white girl thing. But then also she's got a lot of privileges, like a lot of different ways in which you're like, yeah, but you know, but at the same time, like, Amari is Quentin Peters' little sister, and she's not allowed to.
Is Quentin a director?
That's true.
Or Quentin's like from a legacy family as well.
And also, he was laid up in the hospital. Like, well, I mean, he wasn't even in the hospital. They hadn't even found him. They didn't know what that man was.
No, I know, but I'm saying, like, you know, like, Van Helsing's are like influential, rich. They go visit Fiona, and she's like, oh, they could just keep playing, keeping up with the Van Helsings. You know what I mean? Like they're like, there are a lot of intersections of Laura's influence,
privilege
that you kind of sometimes forget about too. Where it's like, maybe she's just starstruck about Laura. Maybe it is just like her dad signs my checks or is a director and I'm trying to get out of the dorms. I'm trying to do something else. Or maybe it is a confluence of all of those things, more than likely.
I just wanted to note before we move on to the next chapter how the Jaden and Amari show is still in action because he says, I'll go wherever you will go. And I'm just like,
they're so cute.
And it reminds me of the song too. I'll go wherever you will go. What is that? Is that Down Low? What is the singer of that band that everyone hated for a good minute? They might still do it. Oh my god. It's not Coldplay. It's the guy with the blonde hair. It'll come back to me.
Nickelback?
Who?
Nickelback?
Yes, Nickelback.
I don't know, but I do know what you're talking about.
Yep. I'll go wherever you will go. That song. And then the other thing, interrelated, is that the crew, like Jaden, Amari, Elsie, and Lara, and Peekaboo, this is the most rogue they probably have ever been in their lives.
Yeah.
They have blatantly dipped out while under punishment, about to receive the whatever they're gonna dole out for punishment, and right from underneath the noses of the authorities, they dip out. This is the most rogue they've ever been throughout the whole series.
Yeah. I think that the last one, the end of the last book was what it was before. I think it was the closest because they were sneaking out to the council or whatever, and then but also it was like Harlow was taking over, so technically the bad guys were winning type thing, and in this case, there's nuance, but yeah, I agree. It's definitely the biggest way that they've stepped out.
What is it? Disobeyed. They deliberately disobeyed their order.
And also I would say too, well, I guess maybe that last one they didn't really have adult help with that when I was talking about the council and stuff, because I feel like all the other ones, even when Amari went out to go find Dylan, Fiona helped her get out, or even when they went to go see Dr. Jekyll, Magnus helped, or when they went to the gala, they always had an adult. So I think this is also it's also big in that way too.
Okay, let's get into chapter 24. So Amari and crew head to the refurbished Van Helsing mansion during a storm / hurricane level storm, hoping that the Bureau hasn't caught on to their movements, where exactly they're going, because they could kind of see where the door was opening as they were leaving, but it was so rainy that Laura's I'm pretty sure they don't know what they didn't see, because I didn't know what I was seeing when we opened the door. Laura's contentious relationship with the Van Helsing housekeeper, Miss Karch, must be reckoned with in order for the crew to get what they need, because Lara has made this woman her adversary way too hard. And so it takes both Amari and Elsie piping up for Lara being sincerely reformed to get Mrs. Karch to back away from turning them into Van Helsing, the director Van Helsing, and also help them think through where they could find Dylan's true hiding spot, which Amari pinpoints as the lake house that he took her to back in book 1. So once they get there, they find his rant book, and as they're going through it, both Lara and Amari are feeling real big feelings from Dylan's big feelings. And just as they're about to learn more about his relationship with Moreau, a dark magical creature reveals themselves from the shadows.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, the cliffhangers are out of hand.
Yes, thank you. I said they're out of control. Like, what am I supposed to do?
I do remember like reading it the first time, and I don't think I felt it in the same way with the first two books. Like, it definitely was a thing, but like I feel like this book in particular, I was like, "Hey, yo,
Like roller coaster ride,
hold
sir.
up." Like, is my seatbelt on? Oh my gosh.
It's so funny because, like, it literally feels like if you're charting the stress of reading this book, it's like up and over. You know that, like, the chart that, like, hits every chapter. And you're like, we off the chart now. Like, we need to come down a little bit. How do you keep doing this?
It's kind of like it really knowing where the book gets to, it's like multiple battles, and then the end, it's like finish them, and them equals the reader, and
Yes.
Magnus is the finish. And so just like, thank
Damn.
you got me. Fantastic job. So some observations from this chapter. First things first, wealth is wasted on the rich. Okay, they
Oh
do
my
not have
gosh.
good taste. And
Bro.
y'all know how little I care about director Van Helsing. That man could drink swamp water for the rest of his life, and I still don't think that would be enough for what he deserves. He takes it up a notch with the level of just disgusting display of just because I can with wealth and magic together. That I just like, it's like almost as disgusting as seeing a Cybertruck with carpet on its exterior. Like, just this man pushed first of all, he had a family holding that got blown up by his son. So instead of trying to like renovate the house to kind of like resemble what it once was, he's like, oh no, I'm gonna go ultra modern brutalist. Ew. Ugh. You put your money into that? Ugh. Like, oh. And then, as soon as you walk into the house, which is so big, like each person basically lives on their own wing. There's 5 family members. They basically have enough wings for each family member to have their own place. When you walk in the door, you see this ostentatious, like, freaking sports car. Like, they're in a mall somewhere.
Right.
And it's like, for what, sir? And then Laura's like, oh, my mom had to talk him down to this from a freaking tank. Are you serious?
He wanted a war tank in the middle of the living room. Like, be for real.
Overcompensating much?
Like, not only is it like such a horrible like kind of value system, you know what I mean? But it's also like
It's
ugly.
impractical.
Aesthetically disgusting.
I like how you guys are talking about how ugly it is, and I'm thinking, like, it's so impractical. I have to walk around this war tank.
Yeah, like logistically,
every time,
aesthetically,
from point A to
morally,
point B, I'm gonna want to go through.
All of it is wrong. There's
the
no
environment,
good
like,
reason to have a
fumes are
war
coming
tank
off
in the
of
middle
this,
of
like,
your
car
house.
that's just sitting and degrading in your house every day. The dust
Disgusting.
accumulation. Like, I just
ridiculous.
So F that man for his disgusting
His taste.
I do appreciate
like,
BB Austin's commitment to just making him a despicable person. As little as he's in, like, I think he's in the first book the most, but then like as each book goes on, you see him less, but you just know that he's like,
it's like a little reminder, a reminder.
But it's also like, it's like
it's trash.
But it's also like, it's like there's no redemption. Like, you're not gonna like, oh, you know, he's a great guy. You just kind of like, you gotta knock on his little, you know, he has to get.
And it's like, even if he does decide that Amari's okay at the end, like, he still sucks. Like, that's not gonna change who he is as a human being.
No. And nothing is. There's no aspect of his personality. It's like, oh, that's a good part of him. I can see why his wife might have married him for that. Like, no, like I'm questioning everything about this woman. Like, is she trash? She has to.
No, she's in it for the money. And then she had the kids to, like, you know.
But she has to also be trash because she's like, this
True.
is, you know what I mean? Like, this is not a life you just take on. Like, no, she's down with it. Like, this is, ugh.
Or it's like dealing with him was an acceptable downside to, like, the money and influence and fame, which is still an indictment on who she is. It's still an indictment. She's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes you want to take your own. I don't know.
This parental dynamic explains my next point. Laura's mortal enemy being a family housekeeper who
Insane.
actually likes Elsie tracks so well.
Oh yeah,
Like,
because
knowing what we know about Laura and her family, it's like, of course, the only good person that like this lady has probably interacted with the whole time she's worked for this family is probably Elsie. Because wow.
Looks
yeah,
like you got Dylan out here killing mice, and you've got Maria up with the fame, and you've got like all these people suck.
She's like, I knew that boy was on some psycho terrorist stuff before we even got this far. Let me tell you right now, I knew all that.
I'm saying like the fact that like she knows this. I'm sure she told the parents, and they still just let that boy rock.
Right? They were like, she's like, I didn't know he was a magician, but I knew he wasn't.
I knew he wasn't right.
Yeah.
They knew he wasn't right, and they still just unleashed him on us
because they made him who he is. And it's like, what? Like, you want me to like confront my own parenting skills? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Just throw some money at it, but like throw some money at therapy.
But exactly, no, because that would make them have to confront. Because when you send the kids to therapy, they come back with answers to why they are the way they are, and the answers are you screwed me up. Then now you got to be like, well, shoot, now I got to go to therapy, and again, that needs to work on me. I don't want to work on me. I'm perfect. Realizations you have once you're in therapy. Anyway,
no worries.
So I just something about the mortal, like the way that like she like Miss Karch is such a mortal enemy to Laura that like she's like she's ready to like her memory is along with Laura, and she's like, these are all the like infractions you've made upon me while I've worked here, and F that, I'm about to call your daddy. And it takes Amari and Elsie to like back up. But like I like that in the story writing, like it keeps the stakes reasonable, because it's like I absolutely going from book 1 Laura to this Laura, even in this book Laura, like I completely believe the housekeeper on how badly she's been treated by Laura. Like no question. And I think it also kind of like it is a good thing for like a character development understanding of Laura at this point of where she is and all things like that. And I really would be interested in seeing how this interaction would have gone had Elsie or Amari either not been there or had not spoken up, because I feel like this makes Laura have to stand in how awful she's been. But I think there's so much more that needs to be like worked on, and maybe like that's going to be a progressive thing that we see. But I really appreciate that, like, this is like we're talking about like how BB's depiction of Director Van Helsing being a rich awful guy, it feels like that's what he's pulling from, is from like real life circumstances of rich people being awful, stupid, bad decorating people. And it's like also treating the help as like disposable, and that's what we're getting with Laura here. So I really appreciate like how like rooted in like real life circumstances this all is, at the same time that it's all fanciful and fantasy at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. I think
love
it's like
that.
one of those things where like you're saying, it's like Laura has, because even initially she is like, Mrs. Karch is out to get me, and like has all of these things, and then you find out deeper that like, no, Laura has been, it's like, you know that how Laura has been, but it just kind of reinforces like she not only like was trash, but like it doesn't mean, it's not something that like you flip right away.
Yeah.
And so
and it's a lot of
things,
it's a
like,
lot of stuff.
attentions, it's a lot of things that you might forget or not. You know, you have your perceptions of stuff, and then Mrs. Karch says, like, points out how she's been treating her, and Laura's like, oh, right, like that's, you know what I mean? Like hearing those things can then make you be like, oh, okay, yes, I need to stop doing that. If that's your intention.
Yeah, and I think like having Laura reckon with that, and like also the like showing like the blind spots of like it never crosses her mind. It like all she thinks about is how Miss Karch treats her. how she treats him, it never crosses her mind. It's not even like she doesn't, I don't think, and this is an issue, right? And she needs to confront, I don't think she sees that, like, sees her as a person beyond her, like, servitude or in service to what Laura wants, or getting in the way of what Laura wants, right? And I think, like, it's really smart, and I love kind of like juxtaposing Laura and Dylan, like they're twins, they have the same kind of inputs and stuff, and like she's not a born magician or whatever, but she is trying, like, both of them trying to like be better than their parents, or like what their parents laid out, and the ways in which that happens, or like be different, I guess, maybe not better.
Well,
I do
I
think
think
that
Dylan
Dylan,
would-
in Dylan's mind, he thinks
Yeah.
he's trying to be better and like
I think so.
go with, you know, but then the ways in which like that those kind of paths diverge, and also the ways in which Laura actually has to like listen to the people that she's harmed, and the amount of times that we've seen like Dylan and Amari kind of interacting with each other, like since the reveal in the first book, is like Dylan being like, but you don't get it, but you don't get me, like, or you're not listening to me, and not having that moment that Laura just had of like, oh wait, but what am I doing to you, or how are you seeing this, you know what I mean? Like, when has Dylan stepped outside of himself to look at it from Amari's perspective, or look at it from anyone else's perspective? You know, and I think that's really like a genius part of the storytelling. So, congrats, BB Alston. You know what, you're good at what you do, I guess, but also give us a freaking break.
I just want to add that it's funny that you pulled up the juxtaposition of Dylan and Laura. When I see this is also like a juxtapose how Laura is reacting to listening to Miss Karch, to how Quentin has like lacked a response to Amari's feeling towards how he's been treating her. And so, not to make Robyn's point and comparing like Dylan and Quentin to each other, but there are some things there where it's like, if only he like had taken in Amari's why she's upset with him in that moment, and again, like had taken that time that he had, like he had plenty of time to like go and catch her, like her, and talk about it, whatever. So I think there's like so many, like seeing Laura have this moment, like it sheds a light on people who also should have taken advantage of these moments, and they haven't so far.
BB Alston knocking the older siblings down a peg or 3. I'm looking at 2 of them.
I mean,
we have so little. We don't need to have our pegs taken.
I just think sometimes
we're holding bond by like the skin of our nails. Like
sometimes we need to stop. Everyone needs to stop and look at their life and look at their choices. No one is immune or above a little bit of self-reflection.
Speaking of people who feel like they're immune to self-reflection, Dylan's room, that scene, it's
transition.
It's full of classic thriller and horror moments where they're like trying different. They're like, because he's booby trap. Like he and Laura used to play booby trap games, so everything about like them interacting with this room is like at any moment Dylan may have set up something that could take you out, and them being like, oh, the answer is peekaboo. I'm like, how do y'all know he didn't like magic slin up that like doesn't count in someone who's undead? You know what I mean? Like, how do you know that's actually the way? So it was hilarious to me that not only like the sequence is happening, but while this sequence is happening with them like trying to figure out like, is it safe to go into this room? When they call it peekaboo, peekaboo's like, look now, I love mayhem. I love to get mischief. I'm down. But I'm tired, okay? I need my ghostly rest. R.I.P. for real. And y'all are playing with me. Like, do y'all not have a bedtime? Because I surely do. And it felt like I'm like a Cancer moment, because like I feel like most of the Cancers I know are very like adamant about their sleep time, and Robyn is like a primary like the example of that. And I'm like, he was like, look now, y'all may not
I
have
didn't know that was a
bedtimes,
Cancer
but I
thing.
do.
I just thought that was a like, let's be smart about this. People need rest. I do want to say, it is very funny, like hindsight or just looking at things in a different lens. Like 2 twin kids playing booby trap games on its face is cute. Whatever. When you find out that one of those twin kids was killing mice,
Well, I don't know if he was killing mice. I mean, I
well,
made that up, but yeah.
you know what
And
I
she
mean. Like,
says, like, she's like, I stopped. It started getting too dangerous, so I quit.
yeah.
You started
So I was
rationing
like,
it up. Mm-hmm.
It's like he is giving you all of these signs of like, help me, help me.
Intervention immediately.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would take the parents being better parents than they are, and again, they're not good parents. They're actually very neglectful.
Very neglectful.
Yeah.
For parents.
Extremely.
Yeah.
But just in general of just like, I don't know. It's just like, oh, so y'all, there were signs. Even the way that Maria talks about, like, and a lot of it, you know, we hear from Dylan's point of view of like, Maria wasn't there and blah, 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 blah. And like, there is that age gap. They have the same age gap as like Quentin and Amari. But like, y'all, there were signs. There.
But also, there's the thing about like, look, as
Maria's not on Maria.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like as the elder daughter who was like, I gotta get out of here. Like I can't. Like it's not saying it's the unlivable, because I lived it, but I gotta go.
Yeah.
See you around.
Wish you the best. See you at Christmas.
And then the final note is that like, so like for me, I always try to notice the circumstances within which information is given and how that may be set up for something later. I do not know this is set up for later because I have not read ahead, and it's been months since the last time I read this book, so I don't remember. But the fact that Miss Karch is in the room when Amari reveals where they're about to go and where they think Dylan's hiding spot is, to me feels like a plot point that's like, oh, like this is an easy way for the Bureau to catch up with them or whatever, because they, like, Mrs. Karch is there to witness her naming where they're about to go. And then once they're actually at the lake house and they've uncovered Dylan's rent notebook, I've been talking about the different ways that like Laura's getting redemption, how there's space for Quentin and all this other stuff. I don't think that what we're seeing in like Dylan's notebook is a moment that like maybe Alston is trying to like show redemption. I think he's like showing us like the journey of him being like a young, scared kid into becoming the person he is now. And like hearing his younger, disgruntled self talk about like how he just feels like abandoned and like not knowing what to do with his feelings, it really is a clear like indicator of like how easily things can get out of hand when you're like these kind of emotions aren't confronted or like having any level of care shown towards them. And like how like, so there's the I love that we get this, and I also like understanding of like whenever these sort of guys go off, everyone's asking like, how did this ever happen? Like, how did it get like this? We didn't see the signs. But it's like the whole time, like he was ranting about these things. Sounds like he tried to talk to Maria. He tried to talk to a couple different people, didn't get what he needed. And so this is where it goes. So it's like, it didn't come from nowhere. We know that like, it was more nurture than it was nature, because this is how his whole environment has been around him.
Yeah, agreed. I really like, and I think also like for the age group, I think it's also really important because especially right now, like the radicalization of like white boys, it's a thing and often starts around the age that Dylan is. And so yeah, like I agree that like at this point it doesn't really feel like Dylan can have a redemption arc. I feel like after Amari. It was like kind of a question mark after Night Brothers, but after the Great Game, it's kind of like, yeah, nah, this is what it is. But I do think that it's still like important to show how he got there in the first place, as opposed to just like painting him as this like kind of one-dimensional villain. So yeah, I always like really appreciate those moments, and also the moments of like Amari kind of like understanding that like, no, our friendship was real, and he already had all of these like years of conditioning and grooming, and his mindset was already like what it was before we met and became friends. So it's like, it's not that he was using her the entire time, it's that like their ideologies like fundamentally don't match, and Dylan doesn't have a great time with that. So yeah.
Not only do their ideologies fundamentally don't match, but like he was on this path before.
Right.
Because I feel like one of the things that we get repeatedly with Amari is like, I could have stopped the time freeze. I could have done better. I could have been a better friend to Dylan, or I could have figured out what Dylan was doing earlier and I could have stopped it. And it's like, by the time you met Dylan, this path and this plan was in place. Like, they're very, there's not much I don't think there's anything she could have done to completely like derail him from this path. But I just think that like, it's important to show the like grooming and radicalization of boys, and I yes, young white boys, but like we're also seeing it more and more with just boys, coming in different forms, but like, ooh, the men are not okay, and
haven't been. Patriarchy is their
it's killing
primary
killing them, and we are all going down with it, right? But like, I see this especially like from like a Black female perspective a lot of like, and y'all can correct me, I kind of feel like we all have had different experiences with the like, the women have to save and coddle the men, and like their downfall is on us, whereas at a certain point it's like, you're a grown ass, or not even grown, but you're your own individual person making your own individual choices, and like, I cannot make these choices for you. And so I think it's both important to show how early and how far Dylan had been on that path before the Bureau even got into the equation, but also to Amari, but also to the readers, like, they're being a good friend, being a good person does not negate the individual choices that people make. Like, you cannot good friend someone out of making bad decisions. And that, and then making bad decisions is not on you, no matter how good of a friend you are.
And I think that's something else to note is that, and I remember seeing this recently somewhere, I can't remember where, but it's this ongoing thing, so that's why it's still like, this happens all the time, where I think that men, because again, patriarchy tells them that they're the leaders, but also like other people are to blame for things, so it's like canceling out them like actually having any responsibility for anything for real,
right?
Even themselves. And so there are a lot of men who, and so I say men, but like boys to men, who have this perspective of like, they will blame someone else for their things, and they'll be like, and they will manipulate you based on that. So they know that you're a caring person. If you try to walk away from them because like they've hurt you, they've harmed you, or in some way, there's people, like, I'm not going to just say men, boys and men do this, like other people do, people across gender do this, but I'm saying this is where I've seen it happen most, who will manipulate you with like well, if you leave me, I'm going to harm myself. And it's like, you can't make me responsible for your self-harm. And I think that's like a through line through all this, is that like, every time Amari confronts Dylan, he's blaming someone else for the thing. And she has taken it to where she's also blamed herself to an extent for these things too. And it's like, Amari baby. People who are reading this who are young babies, please don't let someone else's, even if they put something on you, don't allow them that ability to put things on you. Like, please.
You cannot make someone make individual decisions. Also, sorry, Boyz II Men, patriarchy, Philly's back again.
Okay. And everyone away.
Doing a little East Coast swang.
Wow.
Anyway, but also I do want to, not only like, you cannot make someone's, like, you, I think this is a very good, and I don't know if any youth are listening, but like, play this part for your youth if you are an adult with youth. Boundaries are about what you will allow. They're not about what other people do. So like, every time that Dylan is like, well, they made me blah, 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 blah. No one makes you do anything. Like, we were just getting all up into therapy, but like, I've been like trying to explain, because one of my best friends has a huge issue with boundaries, especially when it comes to like her parents and stuff. It's like, nothing that you do can change the behavior of someone who's set to behave that way. So like, it's not, you can't talk to me like that. It's, I won't be in a space, or I won't let you talk to me like that and continue to stay in this space. Like, the boundary is, if someone talks to you, Froggy, you leave. You escape. That's your boundary. Like, a boundary is something that you do, that you maintain. It doesn't matter what another person's, like, a person cannot cross your boundary. They can hit it. They hit the boundary, and then you figure out what you do from there. But if a person crosses your boundary, you let them. You move the boundary.
You've changed your boundary.
You've changed your boundary, right? And so I think we're getting real far away. I'm getting real far away from Amari at this point. Not totally, but in essence, like, I think it's really important. And it's something that I'm hoping, like, at the end of this book, Amari kind of does get to a little bit of like, I am not responsible for, nor am I able to save the world or everyone, especially this world that I just found out about 2 weeks ago. So like, I'm still trying to learn how to navigate this space, and y'all want me to save it, and I feel guilty about not living up to those saving, not being the good magician or whatever. And I think that I don't know. I just think that it's really great how it's done. And I don't know that like middle grade readers will internalize it or will express or articulate it in the terms that we are with all of our therapy speak. But like, I hope that they do internalize some of that like idea of, I feel like personal responsibility it becomes like an icky kind of thing. But there is a level of personal responsibility that, like, we are beholden to each other. We are beholden to how we treat each other, and we are beholden to helping people if it's within our power. But we cannot be, like, one person cannot save everyone. Especially when their freaking family has all of the resources in the world and elected to ignore it for years.
I'm just gonna say one thing that's untoward, but it's well within my, like, it makes sense. I blame Jesus.
Well, that's not what I was expecting at all.
I was not expecting. She said, I blame the Lord.
I blame Jesus. I blame the Jesus story, because I feel like there's this idea of the singular savior, the individual like bearer of like the humanity's ills, has created what a hero figure is and like what that looks like. And so many people think they're moving in like they can take on like I can be that person, and it's like that's not. We're supposed to be in community with each other. We're not supposed to be like vying to be the one standout. Like it's supposed to be us all working together. So I blame like, and you know, most chosen one stories are some level of like a differentiation of the Jesus story, right? So if the hero's journey is always somewhat like a Jesus story, then and I like that this series is like doing this like chosen one thing in a whole like a way that's very nuanced and like so appropriate for the age group that it's built for, but also resonates across age.
If your daddy is not God,
But even then,
and even then, you can't do it alone. If you cannot turn water into wine and feed.
But all these people are magicians, and see how mixed up they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no save. Yeah, you can't do it.
People got supernatural abilities over here, cartwheeling from room to room. They ain't got it.
They ain't got it.
Okay, so who was your MVP?
I know that he was only in one chapter and not even in the bulk of the chapter, but a special shout out to Lucas, because I don't know, he just like gives me, imagine if Amari got to the bureau and instead of Dylan's ass, she befriended Lucas. Like, he's like, okay, I gotta go get Hannah now. Y'all got this. Go on. He stops Jaden from chasing after Harlow and is like, focus, you know? I don't know, he just is like, he very much gives me Elsie vibes of being present and realistic and accountable. And then also Elsie, because Elsie.
I agree. So funny that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. were mentioned earlier in this episode, because like, who was it? Lincoln? Was that the name of the guy who had the lightning abilities? That was cool with Sky. That's who Lucas reminds me of somewhat. So
who was Lincoln? Oh no, he was the
lightning abilities.
He was the other white boy that died, right? That Sky was in love with.
Yeah,
he was the better white boy. The better. So I don't remember who she ended up with in the end.
Lightning ability. Oh yeah. He could
the first that she
people.
ended up with in the end was hilarious. It didn't make no sense.
Her grandfather?
Oh
no.
No.
What? That's a digression.
No, but we
no,
talk about it later.
We can talk about it after the recording. But Elsie is who I made my MVP, because Elsie throughout this episode has been doing things like in the way that I'm like, that's how you're supposed to do it. So whenever they find out the information about like the button being there, Elsie's the only one who's like the holdout. Like, they're like, let's put it to a vote. And Elsie's like, but guys, I don't think we should just be pressed. She's the only one. When they go and they are like talking through, like, they like, not only does she make the understanding of how this all works with the mathematical properties, the anti-magic and the magic, she's also able to like discern like what about the original magician actually makes the work that he's done with the wonders extraordinary, and like explain it, and like maybe they're not picking up at the moment, but like it's a way that I'm like, oh, Elsie's about to like, her awareness is probably more than what Dylan has, and that's going to be to their advantage later. So I just appreciate like Elsie just being her full smart dragon self, and also the like cautious one, and like trying to, you know, remind them of all the factors before they jump into things. So I just wanted to give her appreciation MVP. Is there anything else about Elsie? Oh, the magic bearer, to me, like the original magician, I feel like there's questions about him that we should have more of, and I think if anyone's going to get into that, it's going to be Elsie. So I'm interested to see if that becomes a thing that happens.
Yeah, I was having a hard time kind of narrowing it down to one person. I feel like Amari and her friends bounced off of each other a lot in this little section. So I just kind of made my MVP for all of them, even though I don't love doing that, but this time it just felt like that was what it was. I feel like they all played like important roles in kind of like supporting each other and like moving things along, and yeah. And also that moment too of Amari trying to like sacrifice herself or like, you know, be like, take the responsibility for everything, and then being like, nah, it was us too. I thought that was like important too. So and then who's benched?
Y'all already know. Like, yeah. I already went on my whole rich people poor taste. I do also want to say, to add on to that, the neglectful parenting of director, I forget his first name and F his first name, Van Helsing, and his wife. All of that is why we're here. It's the reason for the season. It's why Dylan is as messed up as he is. It's why Dylan has escalated in booby traps to where the stun sticks were no longer on stun. They were ready to annihilate. And his parents, the most that his mom has is like, oh, don't take apart his room. Yeah. Yeah, lady. Great parenting you did there. Emotionally sound and regulated children you have right in front of you. Can't stand director Van Helsing, and if he were a real person, I would give him the stink eye every time I saw him.
Yeah, I also benched director Van Helsing. The tank took it over for me. I wasn't really sure who I wanted to bench initially. And then Porshèa was like, oh, wait, did you get your MVP and bench down? And I was like, I don't remember who I wanted to bench. So I was like looking at my notes and I said, oh, yeah, no, it's got to be him. Because that just tipped it to, bro. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
The tank. I benched Quentin because I'm on this role now and I can't get off of it. But also, it's not just Quentin, but like Quentin as like the face of and stand in for. If he and Magnus could get on the same freaking page, like think about how much smoother this could go, not only for Amari and Amari's squad, but for the Bureau. And I think that like this like roadblock of, and I try to like always explain this to people, especially you know, I was just coaching a bunch of 10 and unders, and whew, that age group is fraught. Like they're not toddlers, but they still have emotional dysregulation that I can't really quite comprehend at their like, 'cause like you're a big kid now, so I need you to not have a temper tantrum on me, but also I understand you have big feelings, but also get it together. But in coaching these like 10 and under kids, I had to explain to like my dad, who's old school, a lot of how you deal with kids, it's, at least to me, or the way I see it, like you can subtly and unwittingly, I know everyone like knows this, do like a lot of damage by like a word, a sentence, the way you react to one thing, right? And it's like, you, not only is it like, don't, you know, because like I'll be like, don't shame them. I don't want to shame any kids, because not only like sometimes, yeah, you should be a little bit ashamed of your behavior, but in the bigger instance of like when they are very, very emotional and you're trying to shame them or like put shame on them for how they're emoting, what you're actually telling them is that you're not a safe space for them when things are, when their emotions are big and high and things are overwhelming, right? And so I feel like what Quentin has done, and again, not just Quentin, but he is the face of this for me, and I'm on this role and I can't get off, is like he has gone from being Amari's safe space before she got into the Bureau, before he disappeared, to being someone that she is trying to navigate around and not feeling safe with or comfortable with. And then it is harming them both. And the supernatural world in which he's telling her she can't make decisions for. Like, if you would be a safe space for her, if you would be someone that she felt like, not that you have to agree with her at the end, but you listen to her and she understands your, like what we talked about, like she understands your explanation or your reasoning for the disagreement or for the agreement or whatever, then she would come to you and she wouldn't be making these decisions by herself. But she doesn't trust you, and her big emotions and her big feelings is like, I don't have time to wait for this bureaucracy. I don't have time for you guys to go back and forth, especially when I know that the way that you think about magicians is wrong. So no, even if you come to the right conclusion, you're going to do so and leave out a whole bunch of people or whatever. So I need to just go do it myself. And I think that that is like, he's stand-in again. I don't know if like what he did in these 3 chapters really but it was the thing that stuck out the most to me was that like that scene of them busting in the door of Amari and Elsie's dorm room and them running away from the bureau, and one of the people they're running away from is Quentin. And I think that is like emotional, damn. So he had to fit. Thank you for listening. Join us next week when we discuss chapters 25 through 27. And if you want to join us live, become a BNC baddie and join our live recordings on Sundays at 2 p.m. Pacific time.
Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com. Follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create. Until next time. Deuces.